Good morning.
Good morning, we are on, so now we'll go ahead and start the Finance Committee for Port Richard on March 30th, 2017.
Good morning. First item this morning, as we do most mornings with finance, we turn to the sales tax collection report. And happy to report that we continue above what our projections were, which were actually ramped up over in the budget period over the previous year to begin with in our projections. So as you can see, we received $16,279 in March over our projections, which was a 5.1%. So for the year, we're 3.86% above our projections. So we continue on in that vein, and other revenues are in similar strong positions. We had a real estate excise tax collection. You can see a sizable amount of money was distributed in March, and I think maybe we had mentioned that before. Maybe Rob would want to mention how that all came about.
I think about 180 of it was that apartment complex that sold. And then the remaining, 35,000 is other activities, so which would be more in line with historical numbers. So it's still up, and then we got that large shot in the arm from that one sale.
As you know, we did go back and Tuesday night recognized ending cash balances too. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead now and enter those into our software, our accounting software system. It'll pick up those new balances and everything into the Springbrook, so we'll be able to start to track our revenue and expenses that much closer through Springbrook, then tie back to our fund balances. So that's a big piece that we've been talking about for 6 months. We're coming together to get that together so you can start watching this. I'll have at the end of the next meeting, I'll have the first quarterly report. They come out monthly, but I'll bring them here quarterly, and we can look at the Springbrook numbers. Those won't. I'll see if I can get the new data in there, but it may be as of the close of March 30th, so it wouldn't. But anyway, we'll start to look at it from that point of view, wherever we're at.
Under the little section here on current expense cash flow, the revenue that's listed, what revenue is that? I realize the property tax and the franchise tax, but what's the revenue that?
I'll have to go back and pull out.
I was,
exactly what
you
it
know
is.
me, I was just trying to tie it into something, and it may not be.
Yeah, I'll see what that entails. I'll find out exactly. What you usually you'll see in there is like the franchise taxes and that type of thing, but that's not large enough to trigger one of those. But anyway, I will get that and send it out an email, because I don't know. I can't remember what we had in that exactly to break it down.
Now, would you be able to change this formula down here just to reflect the year-to-date variance?
Oh, dollar amount?
You know what I mean? Just so we're not, this isn't part of that formula, just so we could look year-to-date that we're trending, $45,000 ahead of pace.
Oh, so you'd like to just have a dollar amount? Yeah, I'll look.
Yeah, just don't include the months that haven't actualized yet, so it would just be
so
the
you-
sum of the year-to-date variance. You know what I mean?
I see what you want.
So we're not
Sure.
looking at a negative number,
Oh, sure. Sure, that's doable.
just a net.
Right, you just want a running total of the difference.
Yeah, year-to-date variance.
Year-to-date, okay. Okay. So, a plus.
Yeah, absolutely. Great.
Looks good.
So Rob, you know, so there's 242,000 in the refund. Did we have the conversation yet about segment 3, the cash flow conversation? Just as a potential?
We did it at the retreat.
Okay.
We talked about it at the retreat at one point. That
Okay. Depending on
Titus
what-
is the driver, and we're not sure. We know we're not going to meet the June 30th deadline.
And we've already reappropriated.
Yeah, we're
180 of it.
Yeah.
So
Because
it's Yeah, so there's, I guess what I'm looking at is, if we did have to cash flow, I guess the question is,
Yeah,
can
we're
we
leaning
cash flow
on,
with
well,
green?
we're leaning on McCormick Village Park for on that. We'll figure it out when we get there.
Okay.
But we know we have a cash flow problem if we go to bid this fall. And really Bruce Titus is the in the driver's seat there. We just gotta work with him and make sure that our projects come together at the same time.
Okay.
Was that the 200,000?
It's the 200, yeah, it's the 240, yeah.
We've discussed a couple different scenarios that the city might put in place to work through that.
Okay.
Fund balances are just notable there. The one thing we did talk about last month, you asked about what was in we talked about what was in the help me out. Got my email. I sent out the email. You want to know what was in the impact fee fund, and it was all for the impact fees. And then Rob asked me yesterday. He was asking about the
Car tab.
the vehicle license.
It's not in, on the third page back here, you list the impact fee, mitigation fees. It isn't one. And it's embedded into the street fund. The car tabs are, so that it isn't called out here on this
Oh,
because
okay.
it's not an impact fee. And March's distribution, Alan pulled it up, was $10,000. So it went from 3,000 the month before to 10,000. We've got this 60-day lag coming from the state, so now we're really starting to see the funds that were paid a couple months ago.
Do we have a record of other phone calls we may have received from citizens? I know we had the lady speak
I've had
the
a
other
couple of
night, and I didn't
comments,
know.
questioning, but nothing on the magnitude of what we had there the other night. What is this, and why'd you guys do this type?
Nothing like King County.
Nothing, or it's
ST3?
Pierce County really, who is, Pierce and King County.
Nothing ramped up to me.
Okay.
And there was, I believe the lady said that they had heard from two people. One called and just asked what it was for, was just an inquiry. And then the other one was just, somebody called on the license fee, and I never heard anything more. So
Okay.
there really wasn't any,
A huge pushback or?
and generally, like on the water and sewer rates, it's pretty robust.
Mm-hmm.
So this was
Yeah.
relatively quiet.
I've gotten more comments on the changes to the water sewer than I have, in particular from the business folks. Gosh, I've got to pass this on to my tenants. So my tenants are particular business building owners downtown, not Monsoor, but other building owners saying, my tenants can't afford this.
So the vehicle license fees in the street fund is where it's deposited, and it's accounted for there. So with that, I would just say that the city seems to be in a pretty strong position as we head towards, moving into the Tremont widening project. And I'll just like to mention that this is the preliminary official preliminary statement, and some of you have seen these before in doing municipal finance transaction. This is the red herring, if you will, that will be put out with all our data in it for the bond. You can pass it, Sean. And that'll be put out on the street when we actually go to seek bidders for the bonds. This has been updated one version. Our finance team people, which are Mark and Sharon Cates, and then several people from the finance department, we updated quite a bit of material that was due on Tuesday at noon, which was a lot of heavy lifting because all our answers are sourced. And they came from everything from when do you think the natural gas tax will actually start to be received and how much, to how many people do you have on left one, what's your liabilities and such things as that. So we continue to fine tune that. When I get a real draft, I'll get it either to a work study, at least get it here, and probably have a work study so that everybody can feel it and touch it and see the reality of it. So we continue to be busy and do lots of good work.
2037. I don't think I'm gonna be worrying about that.
What's that?
It goes out to 2037. I don't think I'm gonna be worried about that.
Well, I hope you're still around to tell payoff.
Won't be.
Well, if we get a windfall, we can call them, or they're
They set up an annuity for the city.
10-year
Yeah,
par, there's a
no,
10-year par
get right
call on
that.
them. There's a 10-year par call on them, so we might
Oh,
make
there
it to
you go.
2027.
Oh, well.
Prepay yours.
I was thinking the other night when we were talking about the tree month. When I first got on the council, we put in a bridge across Blackjack and did the 4-lane section there. And now I'm here when we're doing the other 4-lane section.
4 lanes from the freeway to Bethel.
Yep.
At least that intersection, London, Bethel's functioning
Yeah.
good, in my opinion. I mean, I think it functions great.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a real move in the right direction, plus we're paved down to, what, all the way to the bridge?
Yeah, we're paved
Overlaid.
to the bridge west and to the city limits east.
Yeah, so it's,
And we upgraded our crosswalks and sidewalks in that intersection, so we're good there. It's just the rest of the corridor.
focus
Okay.
on the good stuff.
One bite at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else on the official statement?
No, just to make you aware that
Yeah.
we're getting real close to it, and that there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, so that you have the comfort to know that when you need the money, we'll be there to deliver it to the city, and work close with Rob on it to make sure we're doing our due diligence. Thank you.
Okay. Trip reduction program.
I'm here today to represent the commute trip reduction coordinator, who is now Jim Fisk in Community Development. It was Al Davis, but since Al left, Jim is in that role. And I wanted to bring you an update on the guidelines. When Elle came in front of the Finance Committee, she brought some of the guidelines for the reimbursement program. But we made some change or an addition to the program, because we did get some interest from a couple employees that said, is there any incentive for carpooling and ride sharing? And we really didn't build that into the program. We had it for transit, like for the ferries or a bus. And so Jim took a look at this and also checked in with the program over with Cal over at Kitsap Transit, and it does qualify. So a program was set up to do an incentive for anyone that was carpooling, and they came up with this reimbursement request, and it's a $50 maximum per monthly request. And we have currently, we have 2 individuals from Public Works that are ride sharing. And then we also have 2 other employees that are interested in doing this also. And we do have money in our budget for this, the biennial budget. And I think this is an incentive. And when Jim was over to the meeting over at Kitsap Transit, he said that Kel told him, he said, we're really the only ones that are doing something like this at this time. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention, and if you feel that this is okay to do this, then we will continue forward with it.
So where it would pay for new shoes for people that are wearing their shoes out walking?
No, Rob.
Okay, just checking.
So partly this is in front of you because we had the request back in December, I think.
Yeah.
We had no authority to pay it. that
Yeah.
we could find. So this is bringing it forward for you to bless. The program will include it in our personnel policy.
So how
And
do we
in-
document somebody's
They
Right.
they fill out a form
Yeah.
and certify it.
Yeah, and if, and it says here that, you know, part of the program too is they have to register with the Smart Commuters, with Kitsap Transit. It's not like they have to do a little bit more than just, you know, turn something in. They have to participate in it.
That's just a form.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
2 signatures that says,
True.
yes, we're doing it.
yeah, but,
Does it make any difference how many people ride share? I mean, if John and I, you know, want to ride to City Hall together, does
Mhm.
that count, or do you need 3 or more, or is there?
no, it's
any-
two individuals, and
Two.
whoever the driver
Just two.
is the one that will get the reimbursement, so.
Okay,
Van pools have a minimum number of carpools.
but,
Yeah.
okay.
We did have, I believe, an employee use the ferry system, I think 2 years ago. And then, but now it's we had some requests for the,
Bus pass.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know how many were using that though, but, well, it might have been, you know.
Elle was using the bus because she was up on the apartments on.
That's right,
Mount
Elle didn't, yeah, that's right.
And we've got this is reimbursable. We've been noticing the bike and the bike rack.
Yeah.
That's our temp employee, and she's biking to work every
Yeah,
day.
she has
Rain
one
or
of
sun.
those e-bikes, so it's really cool, so she goes about 2 miles, I think.
Is this $50 per person in the carpool? Or
No.
$50
No,
total for the?
total, it's total.
Because when you get,
Yeah.
well, I read this maximum $50 per month per employee.
Yeah, but only the
The
one.
employee that's the driver.
I see, okay.
Is that,
Yeah.
that is the way we're interpreting it, is that?
We should probably maybe
But we will,
stop.
we'll
We should
clarify that,
clarify
uh-huh.
Yeah, you should write that on.
The other thing that I would suggest you do in your validation form is
Uh-huh.
to say that the majority of their commute is carpooling,
Yeah, how many days per month do you have to do it?
3 days a week. But,
Pick someone up, a block away from
yeah,
City Hall.
exactly, that,
Yeah, and then I'll
I'm
pick you up
surprised how
at
many
Fred
times
Meyer.
that happens. We have free parking down at Annapolis for carpoolers, and they stop up at SARS or whatever
Mhm.
and pick up their carpool partner and drive down the hill and park for free.
Okay, so.
So if they at least certify that the majority of their commute is in a ride-sharing capacity, then
Right.
People take advantage of things.
Oh, I
one or two people
know,
do.
well, I know that we have, employees that are over the bridge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we have 2 shop employees that live in Pierce County.
Right, so
And they
this
ride
is,
in
Yeah,
together.
that's great. That's
They
exactly
have
They
what
have
it's
it all
one
with
in
me,
a row.
right?
You're more than welcome. 3 people,
yeah,
but
we've got a couple.
you've got evening meetings, and they're not gonna wanna stick around for that.
And we've kind of made it known that, you know, if we do have some employees that are over the bridge, so if anyone's interested in connecting up, so they can ride your.
make sure that they're aware of the Guaranteed Ride Home program as well. Says
Well,
it in some of the-
Will
I
that cross
will.
the county line?
And how does that work if you miss your route? Do they-
It's for unplanned, unscheduled events, so if, say, your carpool partner,
Yeah.
their boss said, I need you to work late tonight,
Mhm.
we'll pay a cab to take them home.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Or they went home sick?
Or they went home sick, or
Yeah.
they got a call and their kid's sick, and we'll pay to go take them to the daycare to pick up the kid and then take them home, that sort of thing.
Wow, that's huge, going all the way out to like Taps.
Fortunately, one, it's not used very often,
No.
and two, what it is, we seldom go to lake taps. But
Well, so.
In that
I-
case, they just might take an employee and drive them.
I'll,
the
make sure
key is
Jim.
it's unplanned and unscheduled, so yeah, unlike Nick coming to work today knowing that he's got a council meeting he has to be at tonight, that doesn't qualify.
I'll make sure Jim kind of does a refresher to everybody out there regarding this. And I do put information in our new employee orientation binder on the rideshare too, so they have that. So is this okay to continue?
It's okay with me.
Right.
Hopefully it's successful. Alrighty. Public Works.
So, as we know, when we went through the budget process, we changed the assistant city engineer's job description, and we elevated Zach to be the stormwater manager. And then after we started the salary survey process in the 11th hour of the budget, we also then promoted Thomas. So that really wasn't embedded in the salary survey process the way the rest of everything else was. So what you have before you is some job descriptions were presented to me. There's some red line versions of those, and with the assistant city engineer, I've removed the utilities management and operation and coordination aspect of the job because Thomas is doing that. And then the job description that was presented to me we've got Darren doing the GIS, so that's that bottom part struck out, and then because we added a GIS person last year, and then Mark is really the one. I've struck the words engineering and specifications to that, and it's really Thomas is doing the initial plan review, then that Mark later is then the engineer of record, you know, taking or not taking Thomas's recommendations and putting his stamp to it. My concern is that after we gave Thomas a modest bump, and Thomas came back with data because we didn't make it wasn't really part of the salary survey, showing that his position, you know, isn't in line. What we're paying him isn't in line with his peers. I believe, you know, so this whole process has been objective and not subjective. Subjectively, I believe he's probably right. My concern here is I don't think we're completely done tweaking things in public works. We've got an assistant engineer that we think has certain skills that doesn't start until Monday. Tomorrow starts tomorrow. We've got this piece where we know we're going to have a management, you know, a project management component that we're not sure who, you know, this assistant, his resume says he's got those skills, but will we have the bandwidth? So I think we need to take Thomas's position to the salary consultants with your guys' blessing to look at this. But I'm not comfortable probably today doing that until I've got, you know, we get this other person on board, and because these could get refined a little, you know. I'm comfortable with these today based on this is what I believe it's going to look like. But there's a lot of moving parts here right now. So I think what I would, you know, and in fairness to Thomas, I think we owe it to him, because I think he probably is under market a little bit. But I'd like to put the brakes on this, but make a commitment to Thomas that we will look at this, but after we've got, you know, some time with everybody on deck, you know, and then we're not moving deck chairs anymore. So because I think we might use a consultant for project management. We might hire somebody, we might make it part of somebody's existing responsibilities and maybe augment with some additional clerical staff. I just don't know.
What kind of time frame are you thinking about?
I'm thinking at least 60 days. And if, you know, let's wait, you know, commit to that, you know, we'll look at this, you know, performance-wise, and make sure what everybody truly is doing. This might be the right job descriptions. Then take it to Ross Artie. You know, he might charge us something modest. But I don't want to do this subjectively, I guess is what I'm, in fairness to everybody else that's playing that we've done the salary survey for. And then from there, if it's something significant that we're doing to Thomas, maybe it's, you know, if it's not significant, maybe it's part of a soon budget adjustment. If it's significant and we're adding other another piece to this. It's part of the mid biennial budget, and I think the other piece of it too is if we're going to do something with Thomas too, is with the understanding he's making a significant amount of overtime right now, and that he becomes, if he's part of the management team, he's potentially maybe it's he's managing the sewer utility right now too. It's not in his job description. Mark's giving him that task, and maybe we're making him the utility manager overall, and it's a salary position. I got a lot of ideas, but I think we need a little bit of time actually doing the work and making sure that our new hire is what his strengths truly are, and maybe there's a potential that we can do some of this project management in-house if I'm able to strip away some more responsibilities from Mark and the assistant city engineer.
Yeah, and if I could, so I just want to make sure the finance committee and the mayor and the treasurer truly understand kind of big picture of what's happening. So first, with the assistant city engineer, we specifically looked for somebody that was strong in permit plan review, and Mike Pleasance has that, even though he's been with a private firm for 22 years, the same firm. He's been outsourced for 3 different jurisdictions where the jurisdiction hires for plan review. So that was perfect, because that's really one of the key things we needed. The other key thing we needed was somebody that could do the level of project management for construction. And Mike has actually managed as the lead engineer or the resident engineer lead inspector for a DWSRF, which is they're federal, even though it's a state revolving fund, it's actually federal dollars. So he's actually managed fairly significant projects. I don't think when we had that project manager conversation last week at the retreat that on a Tremont project, or when we finally go to Bay Street on the full
they're not
project,
eligible.
we have to hire a consulting firm, because that is federal dollars and it has to be managed federally. But we need somebody that can be that interface person on those types of projects, somebody that's managing that consultant. So that's what we're looking at Mike doing. And then on city projects like McCormick Park or a DeKalb Pier type project, perfectly suited to do that. So so that's kind of what we expect to happen with Mike, and that's why we chose him.
And the projects we have in the hopper for 2016, we've got consultants managing the projects. Where we're gonna get that next hump is if we'll have to make a decision on McCormick Village Park when we go out to bid. Are we gonna try to do this in-house? It's a pretty big project. Or are we gonna hire a consultant and that isn't in the budget number that we have?
Yeah, I think Mike and Darren can easily manage that.
Getting back to this specific on this, I concur with what you're suggesting. The only thing is, you said one thing that troubled me. You said if there isn't an adjustment justified through the salary consultant, were you going to wait until the budget adjustment?
It just depends on revenue, and I don't want to, if it's $30,000 we're talking annually, we got to look at dollars and cents and whether we've got that to
I'm just
pay.
a little concerned that if you have a consultant to come in and says this position should be paid X, and you arbitrarily say, no, I'm going to pay something less than X.
I think we'd have to step back, just like we did with everybody else in this process. We brought everybody within a range of that,
Yeah.
and
As long as we're consistent, then I think
it
that's
needs to be
the big
stepped,
thing.
and I don't want to commit that we're going to go to the consultant and we're going to emphatically do exactly what the survey says.
Yeah, no,
we got to weigh all of our priorities too. I think we need to, if it says we need to take care of this employee, we need to take care of this employee, and what that process. It could be stair-stepped like we did with others.
We're going to do what the survey suggests, it's just how we implement it.
Right. And then the
So
other,
Yeah, I wouldn't
my
want,
experience with salary surveys, they're a necessary evil, but they are a pain, because you always have somebody that you know, I should be paid more than her because I work hard even though my jobs are different.
And
I
you're a
really don't know
man.
what she does, but I should be paid more. You know, you get that kind of stuff, yeah. But when you have a justification like this where you're actually making adjustments to the job descriptions, I appreciate you going back to the consultant.
The other thing that the mayor said that I perked my interest was moving that, whatever that, however the actual work flows, would perhaps be moving that to a exempt position, because that could have significant impact on the employee also.
You know, that has to happen. And-
Yeah, he's earned about $5,000 year to date in overtime this year, so.
Yeah, but you don't make that decision based on how much overtime a
Yeah.
person makes, so. you have to
Okay,
have
and
the
so
person.
so very quickly, so with Thomas specifically, I just want to remind everybody that in 2015, it really started with the comprehensive plans, because we were overwhelmed, and Thomas came in as the foreman, then became the water system manager, which was planned when he was going to come in. He was going to be ultimately the water system manager within a year, and we did that. It just happened that everything in Public Works was pretty overwhelming, and Thomas, I had no time to even manage the water and the sewer plan elements. Nick had a deadline. He just picked that up as additional duties as assigned, but he's not stopped with that. He continued right through from the comp plans through the capital facility charges for water and sewer on plan reviews, and currently now, he's with the McCormick Communities conversations with water and sewer. So he's just been doing that.
It's a given. Thomas has been, anything that gets handed to him, he's grabbing, taking it on and owning it, and doing an excellent job on it. I have no doubt he's gonna continue that way. I'm just a little nervous when I got somebody starting tomorrow and we think they're gonna do X, Y, and Z, and that's what we put in the job description. But we're all been managers or have been, and we know that resume's one thing and an interview's another, and performance is reality. And I'd like to get a little bit of time with our new person to make sure they're able to do what they're gonna do. Relook at these job descriptions one more time, and it could be part of the solution is that we add a little more to Thomas's plate to help our engineers out, so that maybe we can
Let them do engineering.
let them do engineering and some project management maybe too, and maybe then it's augmenting clerical staff versus another very expensive employee.
And the last point I want to make is, I know there's been, I don't know if everybody's disconcerted or there's concern, but I know that when I came here, and I think I've told this to you, what I want my legacy to be is simply that I was part of the shift from the small town when Larry was in charge of everything and he could manage all that. And then now we had comprehensive plans that are actually financially constrained. I mean, everything, procurement. It's just, I want to be known as the person that helped get the city from where they were at that time to, a 20,000 population city. And so there's been a lot of moving parts, but I want to let you know that it has truly been strategic. What we've done in the shop, where we have lead for water, sewer, and streets, a lead employee, and then the foreman, and we worked out the foreman public works supervisor thing. And then even up here, ultimately, what needs to happen when you look at other successful models is you have a public works director that has a management team, rather than just everything flowing through a singular person, because city, work just stops. And we've had some errors and mistakes in the past because of that kind of singular person has to be there to answer every single question. And so to have a management team, that's what I'm really trying to put my main focus on. And I certainly hope that Mike fits that mold. Cindy definitely, and I think Alan can speak to that as far as even in this procurement. She's definitely a key person. Thomas, as Rob said, has done everything asked. He's passionate about it. He's educated. He's the right age. I mean, to be in that management team, to be a utility manager someday. So I just want to let you know that this isn't just kind of willy-nilly, it's very strategic. And keeping Thomas as a key component of that is really important.
So my recommendation, I'd like head nodding if I could, is that in May, roughly in May, Finance Committee, if it's about this time of the month, I'll bring back a report, what we're doing, how we're doing it, and the potential that we will take this to the, Thomas's job description to the consultant to get him to look at what his peers are making, what we should be paying him, and this could be tweaked a little bit again.
I'm fine with it. I just got approached.
Okay, I gotta take you to a doctor's appointment, so I'm gonna keep breaking bones.
Okay.
I'm up again.
I was gonna say, you're back on.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to bring you up to speed regarding the salary survey. The mayor did touch on, based on the position of the, Thomas's position as the water manager. But as part of the survey, Ross already did agree to consider additional information and relating to the interviews and the job descriptions and everything. And it was anticipated that the reviews would happen in February, so it was put out to the departments to, if they had anything to present, they had some concerns or they wanted to know more how we got to that point, that they could submit to him for review. And he did do that, and so we have 3 positions. There are 2 in community development, and the one was in public works, which the mayor spoke to. But in the community development, the 2, and they're designated as really new positions, and one is looking at the permit clerk. And so he did do that as far as their job functions and duties, and I think that's, yeah, so you'll see under the permit clerk, he looked at that, and there was a change as far as the salary scale goes for that. And that is there in your.
Is that the form I, are you looking for the form I?
It's the worksheet form, the step worksheet form. It might be behind all the job descriptions, I think. So you can just take a look at that. And so there was an adjustment there, and actually it did. The range that was originally proposed, re-looking at job descriptions and the qualifications, the average did go down for this position. And then...
The long and the short of it is that there was 3 different positions, and the intent was with Nick's move across the street, is these 3 positions would be generic. And so we had 3 different salary ranges. So we looked at this, merged them into one salary range, and then so a position that's currently not filled had a much higher range.
Right, it was the public works permit.
And now we're gonna repost that job with a new salary range, and the net effect is the average is it's actually lower. So there's actually a cost savings to doing this.
And they also looked at, he also looked at the office manager position, and which did, looking at the responsibilities and qualifications.
And there's 2 office managers. There's one in public works.
Public works and one in community development.
They're under the same
They're
scale.
they fall under the same scale. And so when we looked at this, and and looking at our allocated budget, we followed the same methodology that we did with all the employees. is that, and we brought everyone in within that 7%. So the numbers that you see here would be, those are the salary scale numbers, but then we would have adjust those individuals, like the office manager for Public Works would be coming in at the first step. And then the office manager, we have, looking at that, within the 7% alignment would be at a step 3. And then if you look at, I don't know if they have
Is
this.
that year 3 or step 3? I thought
A year
that told me
3.
It was year 3.
A year 3, I'm sorry.
Step 4. There's the.
Yeah, year 3. And then actually in the Public Works the Public Works and Public Works, looking at her current salary, she would be at the first 6-month step.
The unintended consequence is the Public Works office manager got a bump that wasn't anticipated because we were looking at the scale as a whole. It took the office manager in DCD, who was previously frozen and actually would have been frozen for a period of time, brought her up to year 3, which is step 4, because the first step is the first 6 months. And then, so that's what we did with the rest, everybody else in the non-represented group. We took your, whatever the survey said, we brought you within 7%.
Round up, yeah, to
Within
7%.
7%.
Or they rounded up to
And then we rounded it
up to the nearest
to
step on the salary
nearest
scale.
step on the salaries range, so you reset somewhere in the 6 steps there based on where it brought you. So you, in Cindy's case, she goes to the 6-month step because she was a new hire and it bumped her up a little bit. In Ellen's case, trying not to personalize this, but in the DCD, it would brought her in, instead of being frozen, now she's in the 4th step, the year 3, 4th step with 2 more steps.
So
within the range.
if you look at the biennial salary and benefit sheet, you'll see that while those those 2 positions, there was an increase, there was a decrease as far as the amount that with the savings with the permit clerk when that was looked at again and brought in alignment in. So, and except for we have a current office assistant 1, and that would just go up a slight increase.
So the top of this chart is the funds that these are
Paid out of.
and the right column is the net effect.
And then you'll read that by the current permit clerk goes to the Public Works 2, the permit clerk position. Office assistant 1 becomes a permit clerk, and then the office assistant hearing examiner becomes a permit clerk. And then they'll have tasks within each of their
Yeah.
positions. But those 3 positions will now be under the same
And
step.
so-
Are all of those positions filled currently?
No.
or
No.
One of them has
One
a
of
temp, and the other one has not been filled because we've been waiting for the salary study to fill it. So we've been,
Because it had the highest pay scale, and Nick didn't want to fill it, and then we got the data, which confirmed this, that we shouldn't be paying this position. this
Well,
much.
that was
When-
my concern. When I look at this, we're not asking people to take a pay cut, are we?
No, they're not.
unfilled
Filled
jobs.
in any case.
no, and I wanted to advertise the open position at a lower salary than what had been adopted in the salary study because I figured it would go down, but I was told we couldn't do that until we adopted a new salary schedule.
Right.
So we put that on hold pending the outcome of the consultant's work.
So I guess on these 2 positions, and we're holding off on the current position that Thomas is in,
So we're talking about the permit
the
clerk.
permit clerk and the office
manager.
manager. So we're looking for, your approval to, if we can go forward on this, a new scale for these 2 new positions.
And may I talk to this as well? I provided a memo which followed these
Well,
documents.
we can, I'd like to do that, but can we get a buy-off on this first?
Well, that's part of my request, but
Well, your request is over and above this.
I have four things combined as part of
And
my
your
memo.
first 3 are embedded in this. Your 4th would be a further ask.
Okay. Well, we should talk about the job description changes and the org chart then as well as part of it.
Well, I'll defer to the committee, but you can go ahead.
Well, let's first, before we confuse the issue, figure out, is this something
Does this trigger any sort of budget amendments because of the different funds?
No.
I mean, I know the net effect is
Net
there,
effect
but do we
is-
have to alter anything within the individual?
No, but what we probably will do at the, no, on this case, but when we get into this mid-biennial review, because we have had this, we're gonna look at salaries as a package. We're gonna look at the salary package itself and make sure that we have adequate funding in there. So you might see an adjustment to salaries. I don't think you're gonna see, you would just see a gross number. Because usually we put in about, because we do the buyouts, vacation buyout, or leave buyouts, retirement buyouts. And we may have one or two more retirement buyouts, more than we had planned on. And so some of that's gonna impact this as well. So we're gonna have to look at the overall package, but individually at this point,
Are
no.
we stopping that buyout for anybody retiring between now and the end of the year?
I thought so.
I thought so, yeah, that was.
Wow.
checking minutes on
I'm
that.
glad to
So,
know that.
and to further answer your question, remember, the salary survey anticipated a 3-year implementation,
Right.
and the direction from this committee was, if we can afford to do it, we'd make everybody whole at the mid-year adjustment. So that's what part of what Alan's speaking to.
Right.
If we have enough dollars in the piggy bank,
Right.
we're going to make everybody, instead of
Right.
taking 3 years to do it,
Right.
we're going to do it in 2.
Yeah.
But we still, maybe in the 2017, 2018 budget, I want to look at the benefit and wage package to make sure that we have the whole package correctly, because we do have a lot of moving parts, and I think we'll have 2 unexpected retirements. They're accelerated. A couple people did decide to retire. Not, mine's funded, and there's one other funded, but I think we're gonna end up with 4 or 5. But anyway, you'll see.
Yeah, no,
You'll see
from the
package.
conversation we just shared related to this, I'm comfortable.
Yeah,
with it.
I'm fine with it. as
My
well.
only concern with it, and you can probably help me with it, Nick, is what I'm remembering is when we advertised for someone in DCD recently, you weren't able to hire anyone. I mean, no one responded. And it seems to me we made a salary adjustment and then you got some applicants.
We didn't make a salary adjustment.
Or was it from part-time to full-time?
We
There
did-
was
we just-
something, but we weren't getting
how we were
applications.
advertising as a temp position.
Oh, okay.
And we took that
That's what it was, it was a
label
temp
off
position.
of it because it was for the hearing examiner, and
Yeah.
we said, when we funded it, that we would said, we'll fund this as long as there's activity, and we've got to
Yeah.
make a conscious effort that when
Right.
building activity slows down, so we labeled a hearing examiner clerk
Right,
temporary position, and we went out a couple different times, and nobody, we got a couple applicants, but nobody qualified. And then when we took the label off of it, of a temporary position, we got qualified applicants.
Okay, I just want to make sure what we were doing was
Right.
not impacting our,
Your ability to recruit.
correct.
Have we recruited for any positions recently, Deb?
Oh, yeah.
The engineer.
Yes, the city
Engineer,
engineer and.
Public Works, water
Well-
sewer person.
Well, yes.
So have
we-
you had a pretty good showing of applicants, or?
You know, not as many as we did maybe a year or 2 ago.
Is that right?
Yeah, I thought it was real
Shocking.
interesting
No,
that,
it's not shocking.
I was getting a little nervous
No,
with the
important.
city engineer too, but or city assistant engineer. And then even with the public works position, we didn't get the numbers, so.
It's about as tight of a
I
labor
think
market
we
as
get
we've ever
more,
lived in.
it seems like more on the clerical end, for applying for the municipal court clerk or.
Entry level we get.
Entry level, but it's been a little bit low in our recruitment numbers.
Our-
Yeah.
We just hired we went through an interview process, identified a police officer to hire. He was also
Yeah.
interviewing with other cities, and we offered him the job, Bainbridge offered him a job that was closer to home, and they paid more than our police department. But that's a represented position, not a non-represented.
Well, I'm just curious, we've had really good turnout for applicants for position. The Marine Services Director position that we just hired, we had over 100 applicants
Really?
for that position, yeah. And we were able to kind of weed it down to, or we had 7 candidates that we interviewed, and 5 of those 7 I would have hired in a heartbeat.
Good.
So, and you know, that's kind of a specialty thing too, but
Yeah.
I'm just curious if the volume of applicants, it seems like it's been going up for us, certainly on the entry level. Seems like
And I think I was in a meeting with Jeff just recently, and it sounds like we're advertising kind of in the same area.
Same area.
So,
Yeah, I don't know, interesting.
The AWC JobNet, if you want to get a flow of things, I go in there probably every couple months or something, just out of curiosity, and scroll through statewide job, all the jobs in the state that are full-time, where AWC's, posting them. That list is just unbelievably long now.
Yeah.
I mean, but those are all specific. I mean, planners, there's probably 8 planning openings,
Like
right?
30.
Hmm?
There's like 30 planning jobs
Is
open
there?
right now.
Yeah, but just where it just says planner, there's some other titles that probably are planners that a layperson like me couldn't recognize, but yeah, it just goes on and on. So yeah, it's a real tight job market.
Well, there certainly is the effect of lots and lots of jobs open right now. I mean, there's a
Right.
lot of baby boomers that are
Retiring
leaving,
and
and, the economy has brought back their retirement funds so they can retire. It creates a lot of openings, but I was curious about
Yeah.
people that apply because I was overwhelmed with the number of applicants that we've got for it.
I'm thrilled with the level of people we're hiring, but I'm not seeing the volume that
Yeah.
we've had.
I think we've been very fortunate with our recent hires there.
We
Good.
hired people with, we're
Good.
targeting skills, and maybe that's not, and so we're being more descriptive in our criteria, so that could be shrinking the pool of applicants too, but we're getting the folks with those skills that we're looking for.
Well, and this kind of stuff overall is going to help us too because we're competitive.
And we will be going out in a couple weeks and advertising for the new Public Works worker, because we have one of our employees going to be retiring in George and Jerry retired. So, and I think we're looking at someone that has a little more construction background into this. Doesn't necessarily all construction, but something. So.
Okay.
Or carpentry and like that. So I guess what we're looking is that if, instead of going with the Public Works permit clerk salary range, we're looking at this new one under Public Works.
Clerks.
And
Clerks.
permit clerk. And then we're looking at the range for the overall range for the
Manager.
office manager.
Right.
And then Nick's got his.
Nick.
And then Nick is going to have this.
Yeah.
So I put together this memorandum that should have been right behind your, the salary data that Deb just walked you through. And essentially, my request is 4 parts. The first part of it is, and I want to note that I'm not asking for any additional money to be allocated to the 2017-18 budget. It's just shifting things around a little bit. The first part of the request is just formally recognizing the org chart that establishes the permit center. In October of 2016, actually the same night that you approved the contract with Ross Arty, we brought forward a proposal to change the Public Works clerk from the Public Works Department and move them into the DCD under the framework of a permit center. But at that time, it wasn't totally clear that that we probably, I think we should have brought forward a full org chart for adoption at that time. This org chart that we're asking you to just formally bless is in conjunction with the revised job descriptions to accompany the salary scale that was discussed. As we mentioned, there's an office manager of the permit center supervising 3 permit clerks that are all on a parallel salary scale. Each of the permit clerks has its own area of specialization. For instance, the building permit clerk, there's a number of building permits that are over-the-counter type permits where somebody comes in and gets something issued same day, and we're also setting up the online portal for that, and so the building clerk will be specializing in those tasks. The Public Works clerk is going to also be responsible for sending out annual letters and doing tracking related to our cross-connection control program and our sewer grease trap monitoring program, and it's really clerical work, but it's something that needs to be done twice a year in conjunction with Mark's department that we're agreeing to take on as a clerical responsibility because his permit clerk left his department, and so we took some of those responsibilities with that position. And then the planning clerk, of course, is going to be also the clerk to the hearing examiner, and as the public hearings come up, they assemble the records, distribute packets, and keep the records after the hearing and distribute decisions to applicants. And so it's a very time-consuming responsibility. And then they also take in all of the planning permits that come across the counter. So the job descriptions for the permit clerk have the same base, and then they have some add-on specializations that differentiate each of the 3 permit clerks, all on the same salary schedule. And I will say that when we went into the salary study, the permit clerk and the admin assistant were on the same pay scale. And it didn't even occur to us that they didn't have the same job title because they were essentially both permit clerks, but one of them was officially classified as an admin assistant, the other one was a permit clerk. And so we didn't, until we got the results of the salary study, we didn't realize that there needed to be a change to the job description for the building permit clerk. So we're asking you to adopt that. The office manager job description has been revamped because of the creation of the permit center, whereas previously they were providing a supporting role for permitting and administration of the department. This is changing their description to say that they are the permit center manages, plans, organizes, directs, and the operations and activities within the permit center. So they're essentially in charge of all permitting, all forms, making sure that things follow the process, and then supervising the 3 permit clerks. So, so in addition to adopting the new job descriptions and the salary schedules, when we proposed the department's 2017-18 budget, we included a supplemental request for the office manager for the permit center because they had topped out at step 5 in their current position and were being asked to take on quite a bit more responsibility as part of the job, including supervising all of the public works permitting, which wasn't previously in their job description, and also supervising the additional FTE, and going from a supporting role for permitting to a managerial role for permitting. We had submitted a request for additional salary for that employee. The results of the budget presentation that I made was, well, let's wait for the salary study to see what comes out of that. And then the salary study came out, and between the release of the salary study on a Monday and adoption of the budget on a Tuesday, there wasn't any time to look at what the consultant had actually done. One of the things we found in the consultant's work was that the permit clerk being supervised by the office manager, and the office manager, he used the same comparable for both positions despite the fact that one was supervising the other. And so that was one of the deficiencies that I identified in that evaluation. So I think that we are rounding the person's salary up right now as it stands to the nearest step on the scale. I think she currently is between a step 2 or a 3 and a 4, and so under the standards that we proceeded with in the salary study, you go up to the nearest position from the salary survey. But in terms of what we requested in the supplemental budget and the additional responsibilities, we were asking to take her from year 3 to a year 4, which is still revenue neutral because the sheet that, and it's in front of Beck, I don't have it handy, but the sheet shows a net $7,000 savings as a result of the changes to the salary study. I'm asking to use about $5,000 of that to provide the compensation to the office manager who's taking on these additional responsibilities. As part of the salary survey, I don't know that anybody else in the city had revisions to their job description in addition to a change in their pay scale. Everybody else pretty much had the same job before the study as they did after the study. This is the one position where we asked somebody to take on more responsibility without providing compensation. And I would also add that, had the results of the salary study reflected what is before us today, that person would have seen a bump in January as opposed to waiting 4 months later. And so there is some, I guess, an issue of fairness there.
Lag time.
How does this differ from the positions that we were just talking about? Things changed.
The additional review about Ross Artie, I believe, corrected this. That we,
Which is this, what?
which is what you've just, yes. Where it differs, Nick's ask differs from what we're doing. He's asking that she be brought in a different step.
Well, what I heard you say is that between the initial study and now, duties have been shifted around and they weren't captured in the study.
And they,
Yeah, but did,
They're captured in the current study, so Ross has given us a framework based on the current job description.
Okay,
But where
so-
she falls within that framework is the question. So he didn't say that based on the number of years' experience, this is where this person should be on the scale. He said, this is the range based on the qualifications in the job.
Isn't that what a salary survey is supposed to do?
well, and we followed the same methodology then to move her to the into the slot that she would be in by dollar,
Right.
and then currently,
But
and
my
then moved her up.
point is that you do a salary survey based on the tasks that position does, not years of experience, that this person is a nice person to work with, blah, 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 blah. It looks at specifically, this is the responsibilities and this is how it compares to the rest of the world.
and the first time since the first survey to now, he's re-looked at it, and this is the new data he's given. The difference here is Nick's advocating that he's got,
To move it within the range.
he wants to move it within the range, to the higher end of the range is his ask, which is inconsistent with
I
what
was
we
gonna say,
did
which is
with,
different than what we've done with everyone else.
But nobody else had a change in job description to add additional responsibility.
But wasn't this job description that's before us the one that Ross already evaluated?
Yeah, that's correct, but Ross did not make a recommendation for where this person belongs on the scale. He
That's
only
true.
provided
That's
the
true,
framework.
but then the city then,
We took the position of, we're gonna move people as close to, and if it's in between, we move it to the other.
So how did we determine, see, again, a couple things happened. One is responsibilities were added. So the employee would be making a certain amount of money now. And
with the initial survey, it said, actually, she was overcompensated. She
Correct.
would have been frozen.
Okay,
So
but
we provided
the new
consult-
one.
And we provided, and he said,
Okay,
oh,
and
you're
so
right, she's doing
this
this,
work.
and these other things, and now here's the new range, which
Okay,
thing-
so how do we put her in that range? Explain that to me again.
we took, go ahead, Alan.
you take her dollar amount today,
Mhm.
and you move her to that dollar amount, and then you move the employee up to the next closest step up. And then, for example, for an Allen Martin, I was at my top step, okay? So, I'm now a step 3. So because
new
my
scale.
dollar amount my dollar amount was say 100,000. So so a new range took my job to 120. So we took, and on the new scale, we put me at 100,000, but then moved me closest to the pin. They moved me up to the first step. So over the course of the next 2 years, my position would move to 120.
Correct, okay, I just wanted to
And that's what
get
we've
that.
done with all employees, and
Right.
that's where this employee finds herself now. She goes in on her dollar amount, wherever that fits in the range, and then we move her up. And I believe her anniversary date will be December, so naturally, when she hits to December, she'll move to this step 4. So same way with Alan Martin, my anniversary date happens to be June 30th, so I'll move from a 3 to a 4 in June 30th, and
Okay,
I'm
so-
on my steps.
What I'm hearing is that the initial salary, or the salary she's at, deserved more money because of the additional responsibilities. Is
Yeah,
that
and
what
that
you're
was,
saying?
and that was evaluated.
Yeah.
And that was evaluated and
Okay.
made.
And that
What I'm
changes the
hearing, and
scale.
correct me if I'm
Right.
wrong, is based on the results of the survey, this position was put in the correct range and the correct step based on what we've done with
Right.
everybody
And
else in the
that's,
city.
and that's what this number is.
Yes.
That's what this
And
number
what Nick is asking us
is
is to
for,
move it
put
one
her
more
up,
step up.
one more up.
And I think one of the challenges here is that the discussion to reorganize the department began in August of last year, and the salary study, you know, I got word of the salary study towards the end of September. And so these two things had been initiated, and we had a meeting with all of the department heads to talk about how things would shift between Mark and my department. And Ellen was in that room, and basically, through that meeting, I think there's an expectation that the additional responsibility would be accompanied by additional wages. And so the effect of rounding up does provide a small increase, but I don't think it was in line with
What should be
the
thought.
expectation. So
Well,
I think that.
everybody does again salary surveys. I hate
Well,
it.
right, and I think that, you know, we just have to make sure that we're effectively communicating the whole, not just a part of it. And I think, you know, understanding that the job description that was analyzed, it came back as being too high at the time, you know, and now with the new job description, it comes in at where it's at. Because my fear is if we make some sort of an adjustment to one particular person, you know, the downstream
What's to
impact
stop
of
us from
that.
doing
is
it
not
through the
good.
whole
Now
thing?
we're, for the first time, we're entering into a subjective conversation, not an objective conversation.
I agree.
So is there perhaps an alternative? Is there an opportunity to make this retroactive to the time that everybody else got the benefit?
I don't think legally can do that. I think that's a gift of public funds until you have a document that says this is how much it's worth. You can't make it
That was Sharon,
retroactive.
that's Sharon King's
Right, we could
position.
Yeah.
get
You
advice. on
can
that.
with represented folks because, you know, you oftentimes do that in negotiations, make it
I
retroactive
think
to
we
the
can.
start of that
We've done that.
contract, but not,
For a
Not
pool,
with
for a
non-represented
pool
folks.
too, not in.
So
yeah.
another question I have, just, and again, this, now I'm being very subjective about it. Where does she fit on this? And if her anniversary is December, everyone, you know, so we're talking 6 months. Is, you know,
but that would be if what I'm understanding correctly, if we were to move her up to one step now,
Could go
in
another
6
step.
months, she would be
Go another
moving
step,
up another
okay.
step.
okay,
Correct.
okay. Okay.
So of your 4 points, 3 are adopted as part of the original Russ Artie salary survey. The one is the 4th, is the 4th, which was the office manager with a step increase. But I don't hear any support for that.
Yeah, I think where I'm at on this is just, I don't want to get, my job's not to get into the weeds on team member matters. I think what the council has done is we've created a policy that equitably gets laid out amongst everybody. And from there, I think, you know, we ask the mayor and our department heads to follow that policy, and I'm not comfortable making adjustments to it. That's where I'm at.
I would agree, and, you know, forever I've tried to put myself in a position of being at the policy level and
Mhm.
not, you know, we'll approve a new position and we'll approve the salaries, but that's the extent of it. It's his job
Absolutely.
currently to, you
Absolutely.
know, like the org chart change and stuff like that. You come make those suggestions, but that's your job.
Right.
Well, I think that's the direction to move forward then.
Okay.
Thank you.
You okay
No,
with it?
I appreciate that, and I do not want to be down doing the management of daily activities. This is
Right,
This
and
is
because of
a-
that, it makes it really easy for us to be subjective, right?
Right.
Because we don't know all the other stuff, and so I
Well,
think
and-
it's-
and-
that's the check and balance.
The other thing to me is just making exceptions for 1 or 2, then you open that door for, okay, well, what about 3 and 4 and 5?
Right.
What's your justification for not doing it when you did it over here?
Right, and that's the whole reason why I went through the salary
Yeah,
surveys, to
exactly.
get out of that position.
There's winners and losers in these processes, and there are, and I feel for Nick's employee here, she doesn't feel she got everything she deserves, and there's 3 or 4
Some
others.
do they?
3 or 4 others out there that do too, and if we don't follow a uniform process, then we run the risk of not, instead of having 3 slightly just, dissatisfied employees, I've got an entire 25, 30 employees, and all of a sudden now they're looking at, well, when of us, we need a union now.
But this is consistent then with what we're doing with Thomas, because we haven't updated that job description yet.
That's
And
right.
so once that's done, then we'll ask the consultant to come up with the
Correct.
appropriate salary.
Right.
Which is what, I understand what happened between the initial survey
Right.
and today is the changes that Nick is proposing was sent to them and they
Right.
came back with.
Right.
Correct.
So,
The only deviation here is Nick's looking for a
right,
different step, which,
yeah. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order?
Next meeting. Oh, and
Now,
this
I
year.
have a question. So what was discussed today, now, do we bring that to, back to-
does the org chart changes and job description changes have to be adopted by the council?
My understanding.
That's what, in some form in the past,
I think
Okay.
we'll bring it to,
But, I want to come through you as a recommendation for a change, so.
Okay, so we'll bring these forward that related to Nick's department.
You're fine.
Thomas's and the
Wait
engineer.
until you decide.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna hold on these.
Yeah.
Okay.
These are red line versions that I'm just,
we'll tell Ross Artie that, well, when we have our discussion and close this out with this portion, we'll tell him we're gonna leave this open.
Okay.
And be coming back to him for that. That's the policy.
and then later we'll bring back potentially, well, we will, because Thomas's job description hasn't been blessed ever, I don't think. We just said we were creating a position.
27?
I have eye surgery on the 26th and be out the
Can
27th.
you talk by Burrell?
I can't.
20th?
Yeah, you want to do the 20th?
I could have somebody else come.
Um,
You want Rebecca to come and present it? I mean, that's fine too.
Whatever. We can do it on the 20th.
Okay, I can do that.
Does that work for you, Ben?
Probably. Is that a Tuesday?
It's a Thursday.
Thursday, it's POPSA that morning.
Oh, okay.
What time does that
I
start?
need to be,
7:30.
7:30 in the morning.
Please stick with the 27th and
Or you want to, when is your surgery? Helen?
26th.
It's on the
26th.
26th, but I'll be out.
What's wrong with Tuesday? What's the Tuesday of that week?
25th.
25th? We'll have to change our
That's
breakfast,
bad.
Rob, but that works.
It's bad for me.
Yeah.
No, that works.
Does that work for you, Sean? No?
Not really.
Not really?
How about Monday the 24th?
That'll work for me.
That'll work for me.
Monday the 24th.
Yeah.
Okay. It's my wife's birthday, but that's okay.
She can come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't
We'll sing her happy
I wasn't
birthday.
planning on taking the day off for my wife's birthday. But
All right, so let's do it the 24th.
Okay, thank
Same
you.
time, same place.
Thanks for accommodating.
Before we adjourn, did we want to go over the license tab? The conclusion that was come to about some sort of relief for low-income people. Because that was brought up at council the other night.
did you bring the memo?
I
Yeah.
did.
There's a memo in your
stopped and got
mailbox
City's
about-
over 500,000, is that what I hear?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you just want to say that for the record? And
Oh, just-
because I thought it was something we should
Right.
talk
right,
about.
Right. See my memo there. I'll speak. Well, the memo itself. I'll speak to that. That's right. There was a question from a citizen at the city council meeting and was asked whether there or not the state in authorizing the vehicle license tab, if there was some kind of relief for low-income individuals. The RCW does provide for a vehicle fee rebate program for low-income people that own automobiles that would be subject to the vehicle impact vehicle fee, normally called a car tab. It's a rebate program. In other words, you'd have to pay your tabs, and then the statute allows for jurisdictions to set up a rebate program. However, it's specific to a transportation benefit district that has a city in its jurisdiction of 500,000. So you can see that the legislature wrote this for the larger counties,
Yeah.
mostly King County. And I think what you see there is because low-income programs are very administratively burdensome, that is probably why they had it at the King County level. So although there is the legislature contemplated some kind of rebate program, it really isn't available to our transportation benefit district, so it's kind of a catch-22. So we did research it. We're mindful of people's challenges with these different fees. The legislature, in its wisdom, set a fairly high threshold to get to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, anything else for the good of the order? We are adjourned.
Thank you.